Hey, this is Max Androgens, and today I'm going to talk to you about fructose. This little nasty here is fructose, fruit sugar. Fruc meaning fruit, the tose is the suffix for sugars. So fructose, fruit sugar. So this little thing here, great source of energy if you're in your wild state. But first, to understand the implications of fructose, we need to understand the wild state of mankind. Otherwise, the implications cannot be understood. If you want to, you can simply go and read the Wikipedia article and try and understand the biochemical implications, but it is not necessary. It is easier to understand it if you look at it from the perspective of the human being's natural state. So if we look at the natural state of man, this is where people lived in their natural state long ago. You can see these huge piles of shells here. This is a midden. So for the vast majority of our evolutionary history, we were living by the ocean or by a body of water, collecting shellfish and then eating the shellfish and discarding the shells. So a midden like this, remnants of stone tools, fibers from plants, and other things can be found mixed in amongst the shells. So the huge piles of shells. This particular midden is 10,000 years old. Most middens have now disappeared under the waterline since the end of the last ice age. The sea levels have risen, so most of the middens have disappeared. This is a midden here being excavated for stone tools in Denmark. So this one in Canada, this one in Denmark, but most of the middens where people would have survived during our evolution are now underwater. So this led to the mistaken, to a fallacy that human beings lived inland and hunted mammoths and large red meat game, which was simply not the case. That's what the Neanderthals did, and as we moved inland due to population pressure, when we replaced the Neanderthals, we did leave bones and stone tools inland, but the vast majority of our evolution, the vast majority of the population simply lived on the coastline as they do today. So if we can understand that we were eating mostly shellfish, living on the coastline, and opportunistically taking fruit and vegetables from around our environment, not growing these things, but hunting and gathering them, we might see something like this. This is a wild banana. This might be something that we found while living in the tropics. And this would be a seasonal thing. When we found a bunch of bananas that were ripe, we might gorge ourselves on these bananas. So you can see here, it's mostly seeds. The banana that you get in the supermarket is not a natural banana. It's been specially bred that the seeds have become tiny, just minuscule little dots. The fibers have disappeared and you've got this fructose bomb. But this is the natural state. Still a lot of fructose in here, but mostly seeds. You'd have these are actually blackberries. If you've ever eaten blackberries, you know they're extremely sour. They have only just enough fructose to make them desirable to eat. And that is all the plant is after. It's going to give you the most seeds. These are strawberries in their natural state before they've been artificially enlarged by selective breeding. You can see here the strawberry has a lot of seeds for its volume. And the simple fact that the strawberry has to survive as well in the natural state. A strawberry that provides just enough sugars to be sweet enough to eat will be the one that will survive. If you have a large strawberry, it uses lots and lots of energy, it doesn't grow very big, and you have a strawberry plant that produces lots and lots of these, this will be the strawberry plant that survived. The strawberry we see in the supermarket today could not survive in nature. It would be outcompeted by this particular strawberry. So that balance of seeds to sugar ratios is extremely important for the plant survival in itself. So if you see your banana in the supermarket, understand that that is an artificial banana. So okay, if we go back to the natural human situation, when we see these, we gorge on them. So what would be the pathway? If we gorge on fruit, what would be the appropriate thing for our survival? If we gorge on fruit, but it's only sometimes, well, it would be to store that fat away for a rainy day. And that's exactly the pathway that we have. If we eat high levels of fructose, and high levels of fructose means just a couple of pieces of fruit, immediately that fructose is stored away into a pathway that creates fat in the body. In the liver, that's just what happens. It gets stored as fat. It gets transferred into fat that will be stored around your body. So if you eat fruit, you will get fat. It's just as simple as that. Now, the amount of fat that it will provide is not much compared to a modern fruit, which is just a bomb of fructose compared to this thing. Look at the fibers in here. Look at the size of the seeds. Can you imagine us eating this thing? This would actually be reasonably painful to eat. It would be sweet because we wouldn't be used to having sugars in processed food, and this would be a bit of a treat in the old days, of course, when we were living on the coastline. But now we just wouldn't even imagine trying to eat this. Little wild strawberries. Can you imagine trying to eat these things? Another wild banana cross section cut away there. You can see the number of seeds. in the naturally occurring banana and the size of it. It's just a tiny little thing. So how much fructose are you going to get out of that? Not a whole lot, but still the pathway exists where it gets stored away as fat. So fructose gets stored away as fat because our natural environment is eating these shells and eating shellfish and seafood and every so often gathering these things. But when we do, it's opportunistic, it's seasonal, and it's going to get stored away as fat. So that's the thing to understand, that domestication has just transformed the food that we find in the supermarket completely. Understanding that, then you don't need to be going and trying to understand the biochemical pathways. It's simple logic to understand why fructose will make you fat. Okay, so if you want to avoid being fat, you have to return to the natural state, which is eating fish and shellfish and opportunistically gathering natural fruit and vegetables. And if you're going to be eating fruit, understand that that will be stored away, so it has to be eaten in very small quantities, and mostly it's going to be things that you find growing around here. And what are you going to find growing around here? Roots and green leaf vegetables. So you can understand that these folks here ate roots, green leaf vegetables, seasonally fruit, only seasonally. It wasn't available in the environment all the time, and when it was tiny little guys like this. So fructose, as you get it in the supermarket and as it's put into your processed food, will make you fat.